Hey gang, this is Dr. Bridget Melton. I'm going to give you a follow-up to our first module. This module, so we'll be doing discussions and assignments, and I'm going to try to post, instead of just writing to you, because sometimes you just get bored. You guys are reading a lot, so I'm going to try to give you a little video summary of what was going on this week. And this week, we had an intro. We have a lot of different students all across the nation, so we have to be kind of conscious about our East Coasters and our West Coasters, that we're all not on the same time zone, but this class is perfect because we get to work asynchronous as long as we stay on track with our schedule. This week we are talking about the low versus high carbohydrates for sports, and I gave you the scenario of Kip, the 800-meter runner, and he has read, he's done a little bit of his homework, found out a little bit of information, and he comes to you and says, I'm going to go on this low-carb diet, and you need to give them some advice. And this is not an exclusive situation. There's a lot of Kips out there. Everyone wants to know what's going to help me, run faster, jump higher, be a little bit stronger, get that edge in sport, and they're willing to try a lot of different things. And sometimes they don't understand what they're getting themselves into. So, Kip's in the right boat. He's not too far off, but we just need to understand as human performance professionals, what is he doing? Why is he doing it? And is this going to work for him? And most of you told me that, yes, he wasn't on track. This is not going to help Kip become a better runner with using a low carbohydrate diet. And why? Because as your book has highlighted, we have 3 different energy systems that we use in our body, and we need different substrates to fuel those energy systems. So the 800-meter run is extremely anaerobic, and it is extremely aerobic when we look at it. Typically lasts anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes. World record holders for men are about 1:40, and for women, I think it's about 1:52. Those are extremely fast. And I didn't define how Kip was doing, but he's in high school and that. So I'm guessing he's around 2 minutes, around there. But no matter what, he's using 3 different energy systems. And as your book said, and as I was looking for in your summaries, is the names of the 3 different ones. So we have our immediate, we have our lactic acid, and then we have oxidative energy systems. Those 3 systems, no matter which ones they are, they're working all for the same goal, to produce energy. And we use ATP, adenosine triphosphate, ATP, and it's used to produce energy so the cells can work. And when the bond of the ATP is broken and we cleave off that phosphate, it acts as a bond donor, an energy donor, or an energy receiver is what's going on. So these 3 systems, although they are separate, they will all work in unison to meet the demands of the body. So the first system, that immediate system, commonly known as the ATP system, because we are using the stored ATP in creatine phosphate. So the phosphagen system you'll hear a lot too. This is anaerobic. It is used for very powerful and explosive movements that last anywhere from 1 to 10 seconds. So we're talking about maybe a shot put, a baseball swing, a snatch. Those types of things would be considered very high energy, and that you would not need a lot of time. You don't have time to go get this energy. It needs to be ready and available, and that's typically our first one. And anytime whether we're getting off the couch or swinging a baseball bat, that's the first thing our body's going to use. They're going to make it nice and easy, grab that energy from the ATP, from the creatine phosphate. So the next one is the lactic acid system, and many of you said this is the system he needs to use in his 800-meter run. And you would think, because in the book it reads that we use this for 2 to 4, anywhere from that 15 seconds up to 2 to 4 minutes, we would use this system. Depending, we can train the system and you could use a little bit longer, but ultimately from that 2 to 4 minutes. Now, the lactic acid system is a series of reactions known as glycolysis. So we are using carbohydrates that are in the blood, glucose, or stored in the muscle, glycogen. And when we break it down, it's called glycolysis, but ultimately we're getting that glucose, that from that glycolysis, the ATP and the pyruvate are produced from that. Pyruvate is a byproduct, and it will continue on to the oxidative system. And typically we use this system in intense exercises. So we could be using this, whether it be the run or small sprints or something like that, cycling, running, swimming, doing things for short bouts of time, more than 10 seconds, but a little bit further. And then it goes, as I mentioned, the system goes right into the oxidative system. And the oxidative system is essentially glycolysis continued into the lactic acid system. It has the byproduct of pyruvate. That gets sent into what we call the Krebs cycle. And some of you are probably scratching your heads and remembering, oh, chemistry, biochemistry, I remember this. Yes, it comes back to Johannes, that wonderful Krebs cycle. But oxidative system is wonderful because it can produce so many ATPs. So it's a wonderful cycle. But it does have a series of chain reactions and all of that. There's a lot of electron transport on the train where it accepts hydrogen and then it ends up with some water secretions there. But it typically, it's used for long time use, and it's like such as running or rowing for triathlons, people who are using these, who are working out for multiple hours, we're using this. But again, all three systems work together. The 800 meter relies primarily on a mixture of both the anaerobic and aerobic systems. It is, and a lot of times we'll think, well, it's just the lactic acid. But if you go to the research, and some of you did, and I was very impressed with you. Some of the research, I think there was research by Bertuzzi back in 2005-ish. He was looking at maximal efforts and seeing which systems, aerobic or anaerobic, was the primary producer of the energy. And he found that aerobic would contribute to up to 65% of the energy production, where anaerobic, which we all think, well, it's short duration, it should be anaerobic, contribute to about 35%. Some of you actually found the research by Duffield and his associates that looked at 400 and 800 meter sprinters. So congratulations on that. And it also showed that it was more of a 40-60 breakdown from that aerobic to anaerobic. So a little bit more anaerobic in their findings. But for the 800, as for the 400, it was more the 60-40. So the little bit longer than we saw, the more reliance on aerobic. Now, because these each of the energy systems contribute to ATP, they cannot exclusively be used. So we kind of got that concept there. But the oxidative system, some of you had mentioned, well, what if he increases his high fat? He has good fat. It can contribute to the oxidative system, which also contributes, which it does. But we've also seen that low-carb diets can have a negative impact on performance of short duration type of activities. So when there's a study done by Lima and Silva back in, let me check notes here, in 2013, so it wasn't too far away. They looked at different carb diets, 25% carb, 50% carb, and 70% carbs. And they looked at time to exhaustion in cyclers. And they saw that the lower the carb, the shorter time to exhaustion. So again, showing you that you do need those carbohydrates to maintain some endurance there. So that's kind of interesting in looking at that type of research. But those are the types of research papers that I want you guys to look forward to when you're pulling this information is there something similar out there? And there was similar research out there on runners. So ultimately, with regards to fat intake for Kip, he needs to have a moderate amount of fats. We don't want to cut fats because we can see the benefits of fats, as we will talk about here in the oxidative system in a couple modules. But he does need those high carbs, and that's going to end up being anywhere, and we're, again, going back to research, 50 to 70%. We saw from that one study showing some dramatic improvements in time to exhaustion. So it's really important that he's getting his carbs. And he should see benefits in his performance. I think ultimately that's what all athletes want to know. Is this going to help me perform better, and why? And I don't know if you've ever tried low carb diets, if you're doing endurance type of races or running type of races, that you actually feel pretty lousy. Even our vegetarians, they eat a lot of carbs, and that's your primary fuel. You know, carbs have got, fat got a bad name in the 90s. Now carbs are getting the bad name in 2000 plus. But there's a reason we need each of them. And, every system's a little bit different. Some of you brought that up, that everybody's body reacts differently. But with this type of energy system and this type of event, as a performance coach, we know we need carbs. So thanks for trying out that scenario. Some of you were really great about citing your work. Find this research, cite it right after, so we know where you're pulling it, that you're getting good information. All right, so next week we are on to proteins, and you have a couple scenarios there. I'm looking forward to reading them.